Now at 6, big questions remain about the recovery effort in a deadly boating accident.
Who told you there were no more victims in the water?
Tonight, CBS 4 News pushes for answers. Who was in charge?
I am not going to be specific at this time because there's an investigation that's still ongoing.
Tonight, Miami's fire chief defends his department's response to the collision on the water. The Miami Dade Firefighters Union and the father of one of those killed in the crash have criticized the search efforts that night. At City Hall today, the chief told commissioners there were 70 different units and 100 individuals who arrived to offer assistance. But who was actually in charge? CBS 4's Jim DeFede pressed Miami's fire chief for an answer to that.
We're going to meet with all of the agencies. We're going to have an after-action meeting where we talk about how can we do it better. There's always things you can do better.
Nearly a week after the July 4th tragedy on the Bay, in which 4 people died and a dozen others were injured, Miami Fire Chief Maurice Kemp says the various local fire departments, police departments, and state and federal agencies that responded to the tragedy will analyze their efforts soon. The response to the chaotic scene has been criticized. The Miami Fire Department withdrew its 54 firefighters and fireboats by 2 a.m., even though 20-year-old Tori Dempsey and 23-year-old Andy Garcia were still missing. Chief Kemp said they didn't know they were missing. He said they were told all the victims were accounted for. Who told you there were no more victims in the water?
I am not going to be specific at this time because there's an investigation that's still ongoing.
Kemp stressed repeatedly during a press conference at City Hall that the Miami Fire Department was not involved in actually looking for victims.
The Miami Fire Department's role in this incident was to provide treatment and transport for the injured, and that was the role that we fulfilled. We're not the primary search agency. We were not there to search for victims. We were there to treat and to transport.
The fact that the Miami Fireboat was not involved in the search for the missing raises serious questions. The Miami Fireboat would have been the only boat on the water that night with a special infrared radar system known as FLIR that can detect bodies in darkness, either on the water or under it.
We do have FLIR. We do have infrared capabilities on the fireboat.
Were they used that night?
No, we were primarily responsible for treatment and transport of the injured. We were not actively involved in searching for people that night.
The fathers of Tori Dempsey and Andy Garcia got onto a private boat to search on their own after Miami Fire and several other agencies left the scene. And it was their boat that ended up pulling Tori's body out of the water at 7:30 a.m. Andy Garcia's body was found a few hours later. Kemp was asked if he would like to have seen the county's fireboat out there that night as well, with its advanced search abilities.
Would it have made a difference? I don't know, but that's not my issue. My issue is the response was adequate, and I think the uniform and the civilians did an incredible job of responding to a chaotic scene.
So who was in charge? Late today, the Coast Guard said they were coordinating the rescue efforts. But Coast Guard officials couldn't explain why the City of Miami fire units and others went home around 1 or 2 a.m. And who declared that all the boaters were accounted for when there were still 2 people missing? These are a few of the questions that still need to be answered.
Yeah, a lot of questions. And when the fire chief says, well, the response was adequate, that's not really what you want to hear, is it?
Look, I think in the chaos, the initial response by City of Miami Fire and by those who rushed to the scene, they make the point, Coast Guard was there within 11 minutes, City of Miami Fire was there within 7 minutes. I think the rush to get there was tremendous.
Right.
But I think what's happened afterwards, when you start dragging it out over hours and realizing you need to coordinate efforts, that's where I think either the Coast Guard let down or City of Miami let down. But if the Coast Guard wants to take responsibility, then I guess they are the ones who are going to have to address a lot of those questions.
I know they're all meeting now, so maybe we'll get more answers to it.
And maybe they can work together to try to correct this in the future.
That's absolutely right. Jim, thank you. And as questions remain about the recovery